I'm going to talk about carpet. Now I'm going to be honest, we've not yet designed a carpet that can fly. However, what we have designed is a carpet that can do better for the world. That's what I'm going to try and convince you. So this is what we make. We make carpet, we install it into companies all around the world, schools, universities. And for us, it's important that carpet can actually make a difference. That carpet can do good for the environment, do good for people, and of course for us as a company, do well in a business sense. We live in a world that, in terms of its climate, is in a lot of trouble. You guys will be aware of the Paris climate change talks. It's quite a scary place to be. But let me tell you a little story about how Interface became a sustainable company. It started with a question. And we've been talking about change management today in the earlier session, and everything often starts with a question. And I want to take you back in time. I want to take you back to the 90s, the mid-90s, 1994. And a question that came from one of our customers. They were asking, what are you doing for the environment? And our founder and CEO at the time, Ray Anderson, listened to the question, took a moment, and thought to himself, the worst thing any CEO can think. He didn't have an answer. We were making a product that was derived from oil. The world was warming up. There were climate change riots in Seattle. He did the one thing that I think most of us do when we think about sustainability and the environment. He thought about the world that his children would live in. There was a moment earlier in the panel discussion where we discussed how change management is a personal journey. And I think this was very true for Ray. His grandchildren were growing up. They were kind of 10 or 15 at the time. And he thought, what world would they live in 50, 60 years? And he thought to himself, I work in carpets. I work in what in theory is quite a dirty business. It was like a spear in his chest. Luckily, a book landed on his desk, The Ecology of Commerce by Paul Hawken. He started to read about the impact business was having on the world, the natural capital that was being used. And he started also to realize that as a businessman, he was in a position to use his sphere of influence to make a change, to turn his business around from something that was potentially damaging the world to something that could potentially fix it. So he came up with a bold plan and a bold goal, Mission Zero. And Mission Zero is Interface's aim that by 2020, we would have no negative impact on the world. It's a big aim. But this was 1994. He was a real pioneer in doing this. For us, getting to 2020 has been like climbing a mountain. We've been making various jumps, and I'd say now we're sitting near the precipice. But this is where it's at its steepest. It's at its most difficult. I think this mountain is also not one that we stand on alone. When I look through the list of companies that are joining us today, I saw many other companies that stand alongside us on this mountain of getting to being sustainable and having less of a negative impact on the world. So what did we do as a business? Well, we started to listen to nature. 3.6 billion years of experience is pretty good, hey? Have you ever noticed how beautiful fallen leaves are? To the right. The funny thing about fallen leaves is they're a random pattern design. And what our designers realized whilst going into nature, walking the woods, was we could model our carpet tiles in that way. Nature really doesn't do waste, and neither does our random carpets that came from seeing fallen leaves. Whilst a usual carpet like this, I didn't put this down just for this example, but this broadleaf carpet would have 11% waste on install. Our carpets look at 1 to 2% waste when they're random. Next, learning from fauna, let's learn from animals too. I'm going to call this guy Dave. He's a gecko. His foot isn't there just to wave at you, but to show a little principle. So his foot is the inspiration for what we call a tactile. It's a little piece of plastic that fixes our tiles together. But what this means is we can use less than 5% of the amount of glue that we would have used before. Glue is a horrible thing. All that kind of solvent smell that you see when you glue stuff it's a volatile organic compound. It's not good for you, as you guys know in offices, it's not ideal. And by looking at nature, we could reduce that too. Next up, nature has this great tendency of growing what it needs. So we started to think about prototyping growing a carpet tile. This was our photosphere project. And what we did was look using castor bean oils, pressing the castor beans into oil to make our nylon for our carpets. Again, this was all stepping stones on our journey up Mount Sustainability. In our factories, we started to change the way we do things. We're now in a position where we use 98%, we emit 98% less greenhouse gases. We recycle our water. And most interestingly for me, in our Skerbenzil factory, which is nearly at zero, we use biogas that is powered through a mixture of fish waste and Belgian chocolate. Never say that we're not powered by premier ingredients. But I'm not sure what the cocktail is, but it's interesting, that word of innovation, where it can take you. No chocolate was harmed or really wasted. So this was kind of a Ray's view, and this is kind of one that we've taken with us as a company as we've been on our sustainability journey. For those that think business exists to make a profit, I think they should think again. Business makes profit to exist. Surely it must exist for some higher, nobler purpose than that. When I look at the brands in this room, we're in the same position. We actually have that power to make a change. So here was the next question we started thinking about, which was, we were helping the planet, but the planet itself needs people. It's a symbiotic relationship between us as the people who live on the planet and the planet itself. And up to now, we'd really focused on just the environment. Now we want you to look at having a social impact. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Trust me on this. And I want you to take yourself away from St Albans to a tropical beach, somewhere around the equator. Listen to the sound of the lapping waves, the smell of the sea air, maybe a hint of a little barbecue of seafood in the past, or a vegetarian option if you wish. Just take another moment there. I know some of you are not going to want to come back. However, in 3, 2, 1, I want you to come back into the room. I imagine you were thinking about something like this. This is a beach on the island of Bohol, in the south of Bohol. Beautifully manicured, beautiful sunshine. I'm going to take you a little bit down the road. And you can do this in most of these resorts. This is 15 to 20 minute drive towards the Danahan Bank. It's a community called Nasingin. It's a fishing community. Let's go a little bit closer to the shore. This is what we see. This is plastic waste being left there on the ground. You'll see nets, you'll see bits of fabric. It's not a pretty sight. 660 million people rely on the oceans for their livelihoods. And the world that they live in, the world of the oceans and the sea, is taking in a lot of plastic and a lot of waste. 640,000 tonnes of fishing waste, floats, ropes, and nets are discarded every year into the seas. That's part of 8 million tonnes of plastic that we put into the sea every year. Every time you walk to the station, you'll see those plastic bottles lying around. We've done pretty good work on plastic bags, I'd say here, but they're a small drop in the ocean compared to the problem we're seeing. For communities in many developing countries, there are not waste systems to deal with it. They don't have Billa, they don't have Veolia coming to pick things up. So waste builds up on the beaches and starts damaging the environment and damaging their livelihoods. For these nets, and fishing nets in particular, when they're discarded, take hundreds of years to break down. Whilst they're still in the seas, they're out there catching fish. It's a process known as ghost fishing. That's fish that could have been caught, could have been sold by artisanal fishermen around the world. This is a representation of the stomach of an albatross in Midway Atoll. What you'll see in the middle, in the red part, sorry if you can't see the back, is a Lego brick and bottle tops. This is terrifying. This is what happens if you were to cut a bird's stomach in half in the Midway Atoll. This is what you're seeing. It's a real live problem that we have in the world, plastic waste. So what can a carpet tile do? Well, the thing about carpet tile is it's made out of nylon. And also these fishing nets that you see here are also made out of nylon. So our base material is the same as these fishing nets. These fishing nets are out there in the seas, floating around and being wasted in huge proportions. I'm going to show you a little video now to introduce our Networks project, introduce you to our little bit of beautiful thinking. So over to the video for now.
I always believe that you can do business at the same time contributing for very serious objectives like cleaning the oceans of marine debris. So it's not a charity. This is an enterprise, a social enterprise.
Networks is a programme that takes discarded fishing nets from coastal communities and arranges the recycling of those fishing nets back into carpet fibre that we can use in our modular flooring.
What we're doing with Networks is creating a new and innovative and practical example of an inclusive business model. Groups from the communities go out into the environment, collect nets off the beaches or from the sea, and they get nets from fishers at the end of life, so preventing them from getting into the environment in the first place. As a group, the community then sell the nets into a global supply chain, and they're regenerated into nylon yarn that can then be used to make some very beautiful products, such as Interfaces carpet tiles.
Developing inclusive business is not about philanthropic giving. We're doing this to demonstrate that there is a better way of doing business.
What we want to do with Networks is ensure that as much of the value of the nets is retained within the community in order for the communities to benefit as much as possible.
They realize that instead of just throwing their nets on the ocean or just anywhere, it is something that they can earn from.
Pagtukod ani nga panasa ng 1 year na, so na minus-minus ang mga basura kay ang mga membro mo participate man sa mo cooperate man sa pagpanguha sa pukod ng mga basura.
So what we've done with Networks is we've created a community-based supply chain that changes discarded nets into our product in a way that helps communities. And we didn't do it alone, we did it in partnership. We did it in partnership with the Zoological Society of London, who you guys will know as the guys that run London and Whipsnade Zoo. To quickly talk you through the process again. Nets are collected by the communities themselves. These guys really know their nets. The price we get for them is based on purity, and the nets sourced by our communities are the purest nets you can get in the world, so we get a great price for them. Nets are then sold into community banks. We've taken what would have been waste and turned it into wealth. We need somewhere to put this wealth for the communities, so we set up community banks. If you're a fisherman in the Philippines or in Cameroon, the ATM's not down the road. It's a 2-hour boat ride to get to a bank. That's 2 hours back. Then you've got to queue up in the bank, and wherever you go in the world, bank queues are quite long, deceptively so. And you don't have time for that as a fisherman. So we set up these community banks that are run by the communities themselves. They elect 3 members, you'll see them sat around the table, and there are 15 to 25 members of these community banks. Banking has become local for them and regular. To give you a little anecdotal insight into this, one of our community bank members, Christina, says in the past she used to have a kind of piggy bank model of saving. She just put everything under the mattress or in one place. Now, she takes what she earns, puts a little bit of savings aside, pays off her bills, and what's left is what she has to spend or what she can choose. I remember saying back to her, you've probably got a better understanding of finance than we do in London, New York, or the rest of the world, because we take our wage, reduce our mortgage and credit card bills, and we've got nothing left to spend. Maybe that's just me. But so we've given access to finance. The nets then sold to the Networks partnership. They're then transported to our partner Aquaville, a yarn manufacturer, and regenerated into yarn that we can use for our carpet tiles. With our product here, we're taking a different way of sourcing and doing so in a way that's good for the environment, but also good for people. And our impact to date, we've had over 400 community bank members join the scheme. They live in communities numbering 55,000. And we're only just starting out on this journey. We've expanded to 3 regions in the Philippines and replicated in Cameroon. And I'm pleased to tell you guys that this year we will replicate in a 3rd country too. To date, we've collected over 80.4 tonnes. In fact, you can probably add another 5 or 6 tonnes to that since I last updated the slide deck. So I wanted to share with you a couple of lessons we learned along this journey. Firstly, sustainable business ideas have to make business sense. And I think that's true for any kind of change management scheme. You have to kind of show your numbers, show what change you're going to make, and do it in a way that's increasing, say, productivity or achieving one of your sustainability goals or business goals. An example of this was that Networks wasn't our first foray into inclusive business. This was Fairworks and our Just collection. These tiles are made out of grass woven by artisan weavers in rural India. It's a beautiful product, but when we took it to the market and we took it to you guys, you said, oh, we love the sustainability story, we think it's beautiful, but do I put it on the floor or do I put it on the wall? It wasn't our core business. People didn't come to us for this kind of product. They came to us for carpet tile. So the lesson we learned was we could have real impact if we focused on our core products and core ingredient materials. Next lesson. You don't have to do these things alone. You've got to look for the right kind of partners. And often, you have to look for unusual suspects. So first off, externally, we looked at who we could ask to give us a helping hand. And what we did was we looked at our supplier, Aquaville. The benefit of being a customer of someone is that your supplier is always willing to listen to you. And in our case, that was certainly true. We were able to work with them to influence them to join us in our Networks program, to use their ability to regenerate nylon in a new way, to regenerate a new supply chain that was based around communities. And that, getting them around the table to kind of talk about it in the first place, was built on the relationship that we developed over many years. What we then did was invite people from the marine plastic world, the conservation world, a whole arrangement of different groups along to kind of help us brainstorm around it. And from that brainstorm, we found ZSL, our partner for this. They were used to working with communities. They were used to working for ecology. I'm going to turn to the sage words of Vanilla Ice for a moment. Because what we did here was we stopped. We looked at a problem and we stopped. We then decided and committed to collaborate. And also touching on a point earlier, we really listened. We really empathised with the position of the zoo, of our yarn supplier and ourselves, and found a solution that would work for us all. But that wasn't just happening externally, it was happening internally too. We needed to bale our nets. We needed to make them really kind of crushed together to get them and ship them around to be processed. And we were struggling with this. But we're a manufacturer. We have plenty of engineers. So we asked them, can you help us with this? Luckily, one of our lead managers in in Europe on manufacturing likes a glass of wine. He was coming back from southern France and said, have you tried a wine press, which is what you'll see to the left? That's how we found the solution to bale better bales. Then we needed a CAD team to help us share our plans. We had one of those. It's amazing what you can do around sustainability and innovation with resources right under your nose and within your companies. Next, we looked to design something we could scale and replicate. These two arrows represent where we run networks now. And we don't even run it in huge parts of these countries. It's 3 regions in the Philippines and just one little area of Cameroon. What I see is huge potential in terms of other coastlines that are in there. And we've worked really hard to go slowly, be rigorous about creating the tools to replicate, and we're now in a position where we'll be able to replicate networks quickly, rapidly, and responsibly. So for networks where we're hitting a triple bottom line, really it's about being a win for business, a win for people, and a win for the environment. It's very hard for any CEO or finance director to argue when you deliver on those. And that's really what we've been able to achieve and we'll build on. But this isn't about me, this is about you. So what I'm going to ask is, everyone in this room has the potential to make a difference. When you talk about change and you talk about it being a personal journey, it's that decision within ourselves to want to change that makes a difference. And to me, that every time someone makes a commitment to change, it turns on a little light bulb. And if we all do that, if we all turn that little light bulb in our own little sphere of influence, that can be a powerful thing, because as more of those light bulbs turn on, we can really shine a light and drive some change. I wish you well with all your own change initiatives, and I just ask you guys to go out there and brighten the corner where you are. Thank you.